If you love wisdom, put your mind up to the ceiling. Don't let it stay in the gutter. Don't let your heart get all cluttered. No, I did not stutter. Listen to all that I've muttered. Your life will only go well if you win wisdom or lovers.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
You and I. You and I.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside. Come inside.
The truth will surely rescue you and I.
Hey, what's going on, and a good afternoon. This is JC Johnson, and you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And on today's show, we are talking about the wisdom of humility, right? So we're going to be talking about what that means exactly to be humble and why that is important for us in the lives that we are living in this present age. So you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. We're going to play a little bit of a commercial, then we'll be right back.
If you're in love with wisdom, come inside.
Come inside.
Hey, what's going on, Wisdom family? Each week on For the Love of Wisdom, we promote a new and free audiobook that we believe you will benefit from and become wiser by listening to. On today's show, we're talking about the wisdom of humility. And so, the recommended book for this week is The Road to Character by David Brooks. This book explains why what is on your professional resume is not as important as what people will say during your eulogy. It is about how selflessness leads to greater success. To download this free book today, just visit audibletrial.com/lovewisdom. audibletrial.com/lovewisdom.
All right, what's going on? And welcome. You are listening to For the Love of Wisdom on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. All right, and on today's show, we are talking about humility. Very important topic. Something that I think, honestly, we could talk about this every week. Really, I think that is that important. But, try to switch it up so we have different topics every week. Typically, since it's a 2-hour format, we discuss the same topic on both hours, usually as a part 1 and a part 2. But sometimes we may do something a little bit differently. There's actually an episode or 2 episodes coming up in the not too distant future where we're going to be talking about the wisdom of mortality in 1 hour, and then in the second hour we're going to be talking about the wisdom of immortality. So I think that that's something that you're really going to enjoy, so look out for that. So before we get into the topic for today, I did want to just go over what the theme of this show is. All right, so the theme verse is taken from Psalm 90 verse 12, where it says, "Teach us to number our days carefully so that we may develop wisdom in our hearts." All right, and that is a verse from Psalm 90 verse 12, and that is in the Christian Standard Bible. All right, so that's an awesome verse. I really like that. I think that it definitely applies to this show. And if you're new to the show, we get this show meaning, or at least the title of the show, we get it from the word philosophy, actually, because the word philosophy, when broken down into 2 words, philo, the first part of that means love, and the second part of that word, Sophia or Sophos, it means wisdom. So those 2 Greek words, philo and Sophos, mean love of wisdom, and that is where this show comes from. Because if you're listening to this show, hopefully you are someone who loves wisdom. You are somebody who wants to be able to make awesome and healthy decisions in your life, and that is what we are talking about here. So what is wisdom? Wisdom is the ability to discern inner qualities in relationships. It is insight. It is having good sense or judgment. All right, so dictionary.com says that wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. So last week on For the Love of Wisdom, we discussed the wisdom of objectivity, which is the fact or impression of being an irreversible ending, right? So it's the character or condition of being final, settled, irrevocable, or complete. Here's a quote from Joseph Campbell relating to that. He said, We must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. The old skin has to be shed before the new one can come. And that was an awesome quote that really summarized what we were talking about last week. And if you missed that episode, which was actually 2 episodes, it was a part 1 and part 2, don't worry about it, because you can always download it for free on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, or Google Play Music. And you can also listen on any Alexa device by saying, "Alexa, play For the Love of Wisdom." So you can go online today and look up For the Love of Wisdom and continue listening on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Okay, so also, if you want to join in on today's conversation, I would love to chop it up with you. You can contribute to either today's show or even previous ones. Just hit me up on Twitter at LoveWise Podcast, and in your response, just use the hashtag For the Love of Wisdom and hashtag North Coast Underground as well. So today we're discussing the wisdom of humility, right? So what is humility all about? Here's a verse that talks about humility from Proverbs. It's Proverbs 11 verse 2, and it says, "Proud and boastful people will be shamed, but wisdom stays with those who are modest and humble." Sounds pretty good to me, right? So I think that the Bible definitely is an authority on all issues, especially this one right here. The Bible has a lot to say about humility, and later on in the show, we're going to go deeper into what the Bible has to say about it. But before we get there, let's just look at this word, humility. What does it mean? So if we look at Merriam-Webster's dictionary, we have a few different definitions that really stand out. One here is freedom from pride or arrogance. Freedom. Wow. So you think about freedom, right? That means that you are free from something. That means that in order to be freed from that thing, it means that possibly you were bound to that thing at one point. So imagine pride and arrogance being like shackles on your wrists and on your ankles that were keeping you away from experiencing humility, right? But once humility comes, it's like you are freed from those things. You're freed from pride. You're freed from arrogance. And we need to be freed from that if we're really going to live a life, in the way that God would have us to live it. Because those things can definitely get in the way. So here is another definition from Merriam-Webster. The origin of the word humility, it actually has Latin roots, and it comes from the word humilis, Humilis, and that means low. Low, right? So humble can be used to describe what is ranked low by others. So if other people are saying that something or someone is low, then we can say that that person or thing is humble or humbled, right? So people also use the word of themselves and things associated with themselves. So if you describe yourself as but a humble editor, for example, then you are saying that you are not very impressive. And that ties into what humility is all about as well, because basically if you are saying that you're not that impressive or you're not all that, then you're highlighting the fact that you have some things that make you imperfect. You have some things that make you not number one. And in the culture that we live in, it's all about saying, yo, I'm the best. Nobody can beat me. Nobody's better than me, especially if you listen to music, especially rap music. That's the main thing. It's about who's the best. People have these debates all the time about, who's the best rapper. Is it Nas? Is it Jay-Z? That's what people used to say. I guess now people would say, is it Future? Is it Drake? Is it, whatever. But or Kendrick Lamar, people would, have these debates about who's the best. And that's what hip hop is really all about. And, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of, friendly competition. Healthy competition never hurt anyone. When it comes to music, when it comes to sports, I mean, somebody has to win, right? Somebody has to win the championship. So technically, they're considered the best. They're considered the best team. But in a situation like that, though, it's a little bit different from your personal life. So if you're going through life thinking, I'm number one, I'm better than everyone else, you know, that is now on the verge of becoming narcissistic. And that can be dangerous. That can lead you down a road that you may not want to go down. So we're going to get more into this topic of humility and why it's important for us. And we're also going to look at some of the headlines related to this. And we're going to dig a little bit into the book of the week, which is The Road to Character by David Brooks. And this is an awesome book. I just started reading this one last week, and I really like it. I think that it has some really cool points. It really speaks on how important it is for us to not see ourselves more inflated than we should. Because if we do, we can actually put ourselves in a situation where we're not able to grow, or we may be in danger because we're not willing to admit our limitations, right? So if you're too prideful to say that you don't know how to ice skate, you could hurt yourself when you go out in the ice rink, right? But more on that after this. You're listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
Hey, what's up? It's your girl Queen Z from the Queen Z Show, and you are listening to For the Love of Wisdom.
All right, what's going on? Welcome back. You're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And of course, you know we're listening on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. And on today's show, we are talking about the wisdom of humility. And so before the break, we were just looking at what this word humility actually means, right? So starting with the verse in the Bible that talks about humility, one of them at least, it's in Proverbs 11:2, where it says, "Proud and boastful people will be shamed, but wisdom stays with those who are modest and humble." That's important, something important to remember. And we looked at how humility, it comes from the Latin word humilis, which means low, right? And humility is all about having freedom from pride or arrogance. And that's what we want to do. That's how we want to aim to live, so that we can be free, right? We want to live free lives. We don't want to be bound by anything, especially something like pride or arrogance. It's not a good idea. So in the news recently, there have been a lot of different mentions of humility and the importance of it, or the lack thereof. And here's one article that really stood out to me. I thought it was good. This is actually from Ghana, right? So this is a entertainment magazine in Ghana, and the headline here is, "I made it to the top out of humility." Okay, so this is a quote from an entertainer, a singer by the name of Joyce Blessing. Okay, so she's an artist from Ghana, and she is on Xylophone Music, right? So it says Xylophone Music, signed act Joyce Blessing. And basically what she's saying here, she's advising her colleagues in the music industry to be humble if their desire to make it big is what they want, right? So she says, if you want to make it big, you need to be humble. That's the only way to make it big in whatever your chosen career is, humility. So why is that exactly? Well, speaking in an interview on Atinka TV's Jukebox, Joyce Blessing disclosed that there are a lot of artists who are still struggling on their way to the top because they don't have the spirit of humility. And that is very true. You know, I'm a musician myself, and one thing that I know is that in order to make it, in order to be successful, you do have to be humble. You have to be willing to work with different people. You have to be willing to lend your talents and abilities, right? Because sometimes, you're going to be asked to do things for free, or maybe to work with someone that you don't really want to work with, right? But you have to pay your dues, right? So you can't, if you're an unknown person, you can't just make demands about, what you want. Like, oh, you know what? I want to get paid, $3,000 for this performance. Well, if nobody knows you, nobody's going to pay you, right? So in the words of Kendrick Lamar, just be humble, sit down, right? You need to realize that in order for you to get to that place where you want to get to, you're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to take some shows for free. Most of what you're going to do in the beginning is going to be for free, because that's how you build up a fan base. That's how people get to know who you are. And down the road, after you've built some credibility and you have a following, then you can start charging, right? But if you're getting into it, it needs to be for the love. It needs to be for the love of music, of entertainment. It needs to be a passion. Because if your focus is only the money aspect of it, I wouldn't be an artist. I would be behind the scenes, honestly. I would, do something like maybe start your own record label and sign artists and make money that way, if that's your main objective. But if you're doing this for the love, because you really enjoy the art, then hey, you should do this whether you make money or not, because that's a passion. So what else does Joyce Blessing have to say about humility? Well, she says, we are disciples of Jesus. If you want to be big, look up to someone who has excelled in the industry. Start from somewhere and be humble. That's how we all made it. So she has some great advice here. She says, look up to someone who's excelled in the industry. So somebody who has made it already, right? You want to look to them and you want to see, okay, how did they do it? Can I model what I'm doing after them? Is it even possible? Because it's not always possible, and you can't just go at things in a cookie cutter way. You can't say, well, this is what Jay-Z did, so this is what I'm going to do. Or this is what Carrie Underwood did, so this is what I'm going to do. Or hey, this person won American Idol, so I need to go win American Idol so I can launch my music career. No, it doesn't always happen that way. It may happen like that for you, and it may not. So you just have to remember that there are multiple ways to do something. There are several different ways to accomplish your objective. You just have to be open, and you have to be creative. And part of doing that, of course, is being humble, right? And it is admitting that you don't have it all figured out, and that maybe you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what the best approach might be. But that's why you look to others who you respect and whose craft you appreciate, and you look to see, what have they done? What is it that made them successful? What can I glean from them? And then here's something else that Joyce said. She said, well, it says here that Joyce Blessing continued to advise up-and-coming artists to live a humble lifestyle, because that's the sole way to the top. Besides, up-and-coming musicians should get closer to the well-established musicians, especially the veterans, for tips on how to stay relevant for long. Now, that's important too, relevancy. There are plenty of artists that come out. I don't know how many have come out this year, last year, within the last 5 years. There's been plenty of artists, right? But for some reason, you're always hearing the names of the same people, right? You're always hearing about Drake. You're always hearing about Future. You're always hearing about Migos. You're hearing about Cardi B. Why are you hearing about all these same types of people all the time? Well, the reason why is because they've been consistently doing the same thing over and over again. They are putting out music that people are connecting to, and also they've been able to define their niche. They've been able to find their own style. They do something that works for them, and they've been able to build up a fan base because of that. So that's how they stay relevant. And one thing about the artists I mentioned too is, as far as I know, they don't typically try to do what everyone else is doing. They have their own style. It's something that can distinguish them. Now, as far as lyrical content, I would say that I don't think that lyrically they have the greatest message. Although there are some times when they do have songs that I do appreciate, that I think do have something, insightful to share with people. But that is the problem, I think, with the music industry as a whole. It seems that things are celebrated that really shouldn't be celebrated. But that's a whole nother topic, right? That's for a whole nother show. Maybe we can get into that. But one thing about these artists that I really respect is their drive. It's their hunger. And that's what we need if we're going to make it. We're on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
It's your boy, Tear It Up, Tommy Tom from Beyond Sports, and you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom
with your host, Jason Johnson.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to For the Love of Wisdom, where philosophy meets the streets. And of course, we're on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. Right now, before the break, we were talking about Joyce Blessing. She's an artist from Ghana who was recently signed to Xylophone Music. And she talked about how she made it. And she said that the biggest thing that helped her to achieve success was being humble. All right. And we had talked about also some different artists who grind. They put in the work, and that's why they are well known, right? The Drakes of the world, the Cardi B's, people like that. And I want to make sure that it's clear. I don't want to be misunderstood. I made some comments as far as the subject matter in their music, and I have no problem with them as people, because like I said, I think that they have awesome drive, and I'm pretty sure that it was humility that helped them to get to where they're at today. That's why we know who they are. But I think that I just would like to challenge them and anyone even that looks up to them, to say, once you have achieved a certain place, once you have a certain platform, and you have millions of ears, people listening to you, you have the opportunity really to say something that's profound. You have the opportunity to inspire people, right? And I was just thinking about lyrics from Lauryn Hill. If anyone remembers Lauryn Hill's debut solo album, after she broke away from the Fugees, she came out with the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, right? And she had this song where she said, "Come on baby, light my fire," right? You remember that? And that song, I believe it was called Superstar, right? So check this out. Here are the lyrics to the chorus. It says, "Come on baby, light my fire. Everything you drop is so tired. Music is supposed to inspire. So how come we ain't getting no higher?" Right? And I thought that song was really timely. I mean, honestly, it's something that I think can even apply to 2018 as well. And one thing I do like about some of the newer rap artists now is that they're not pretending to be gangsters. They're not saying oh, I'm shooting all these people, or I'm selling drugs, when they're really not. So I do appreciate that music is going in a kind of different direction, where people aren't feeling the need to perpetrate as much when it comes to those things. However, when it comes to the misogyny, when it comes to just the obsessive use of profanity, I just think that there's a different way. I think that there's a more creative way to do it. And, not to take away any of the swag or any of the style from it, but really just to take that same style, to take that same drive, that same energy, but just to be more creative. And that's something that I would just challenge any artist. When you're gonna write a song, just remember, other people are gonna hear it, right? Not just you. So for me, as a songwriter, I always try to keep that in mind whenever I'm writing something. I think, I really want to get this certain point across, and I could say this, right? But if I say it this way, people might interpret it incorrectly, or it may encourage them to do something that's not good, and I never want to do that. Of course, you can't control what other people do, and I think that some artists have made some really good points, like Marilyn Manson, when he was being interviewed for the documentary Bowling for Columbine. I think he made some great points to say, hey, you can't blame me or someone like Eminem because your son or daughter commits suicide after they were listening to my music, because my music in and of itself is not the problem. One thing that he said was, really the problem is that parents aren't being parents, right? Because if your child is following me so much, then that means that there's something that they're missing from you. And those were harsh words, but they were true. And so we can't put all the blame on any artist, right? At the end of the day, music is music, and it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But I think that there is a way to really use that platform to do something positive, just like how a lot of the artists used to do back in the day. People like Public Enemy. It was politically charged. Some could say maybe angry or whatever, but what I liked was they had purpose in what they were saying. They weren't just trying to make the next popular club hit, but they were really trying to do something that they felt could change lives, something that they thought could really inspire and help the next generation. And people like that, that they're special, and we do see some of that now. And I do appreciate those people who are doing that, who are being purposeful with their lyrics. But that's again, that's something that I would really like to dig deeper into on a different episode. But how does this all tie into humility, right? I think that as artists, as writers, painters, whatever, you have a gift. You have something unique that not everybody else has. It's something that has been given to you by God, and it's something that you can really use. It's a powerful tool, right? So whether that's a microphone, whether that's a paintbrush, whatever it is that is at your disposal, whatever it is that you are a master of, you can use that to do awesome things in this world, right? So it would be awesome, I think, if more people were purposeful in just the things that they say, because there is plenty of stuff, plenty of content out there in the day and age that we're living in, with YouTube and SoundCloud and everything, right? You don't have to wait to hear a song on the radio anymore. You don't have to wait to see a music video on MTV or BET, right? Because you can catch it whenever you want, right on your phone. All you have to do is type it in. So the access nowadays is incredible. It's awesome. And there's so many things that we can do. There are so many people now that we can reach with any kind of message. And so I think, hey, why not inspire people when you have that opportunity to speak to someone? Why not, give someone factual information, give someone something that's going to cause them to think, that's going to, even if it's just to make them laugh. It doesn't have to be deep, right? Maybe they're just having a bad day and they just need to hear something funny, something that's going to just encourage them, right? Just to make it through the next day. Maybe somebody's thinking about committing suicide, right? But you just tell a joke that's funny, and it just causes them to take their mind off their troubles. Whatever it is, right? Use the gifts and the talents that God has given you for something powerful. Because, it's something that only you can do. You're the only you on earth. Even if you're a twin, right? Your twin is not exactly like you. You're still two unique people. So whatever it is that has been given to you by God, whatever unique way that you view the world, or whatever unique way you write lyrics or paint paintings or draw or whatever you do, that's something that only you do, and that is special. It's something to keep in mind. And we have to be good stewards of the gifts and talents that God has given us, because we never know. You never know when it's going to be your last day on earth. And just imagine if today was your last day, right? And you could only write one more song and record it. What would you talk about? That's some food for thought. That's something that you should really consider. All right, we'll be right back after this. We're on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
This is your girl, Juicy Jazzo, and I wanted to let you know I'm all about wisdom. Knowledge is power, power is money, and money makes the world go round. And you're listening to For the Love of Wisdom right now, bleeding out your speakers.
All right, we are back on North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you. Just heard a song from D-Flock called On the Way Up. That was pretty cool. He's dropping a lot of knowledge on there. I like that one. I'm gonna have to check him out. So, as we were discussing before the break, we were just talking about how, as musicians, any kind of artist, right, you have the opportunity to make an impact. And we were looking at Joyce Blessing. She's an artist from Ghana, and she was just giving some advice to any of her colleagues in the music industry. She said, be humble if you desire to make it big in your chosen career. Right. So let's look at humility from a different aspect now. All right, here's a headline. It's from The Guardian, and it's called The Guardian View on Elon Musk, a billionaire in need of humility. Wow. Why is that? What happened? What's going on with Elon Musk, right? You think someone who has that much money, right? What kind of issues could they really have, right? It seems like they got it all. Well, check this out. Here's what they have to say. And if anyone is familiar with what happened in Thailand recently, then you'll understand this, right? So check this out. It says, last week, Mr. Musk turned up in Thailand with a miniature submarine, which he thought could help rescue a dozen boys from a flooded underground cave complex. All right, everyone remember that? That was in headlines recently. The international dive team, headed by the Thai Navy, went in without the submersible craft because it was considered impractical by the authorities. Mr. Musk might have felt sore that his commendable effort to help was rejected. Poor Elon Musk, right? I guess they didn't want to use his submarine. He should have got over it, as the divers, sans the Musk machine, brought the boys back alive. So it looks like, the boys, they made it back safely, even without the assistance of Elon Musk. But here's what the article has to say next. However, when a British diver who found the boys criticized Mr. Musk for a public relations stunt, the billionaire made an allegation of pedophilia, against him in a tweet that he later deleted. That was uncalled for. I mean, what's the point of that, right? Why did he have to accuse the guy of being a pedophile just because he said that he was just doing a public relations stunt? That's a pretty big comeback there. Right? So the diver says he is astonished and very angry about what Elon Musk said. He said it's a baseless claim, right? I mean, if someone called you a pedophile, I'm sure you'd want to clear that up pretty quickly. So he was upset about that. He said that he may even take legal action as a result. So, hey, I wouldn't blame him, That's a pretty serious claim. So Mr. Musk, it goes on to say, is a talented engineer who's made billions of dollars from technology, but he could gain a lot from a little humility. I mean, as we all could, right? So it says here, there's also a tendency among the insanely wealthy to see their riches as somehow making them out as intellectually and morally superior. And I think that's an important point right there too, because it's true. People, when they get to a certain place in life, whether that's financially or intellectually or just socially, they have a particular status, they're elevated, they're praised by many people. They can begin to have an inflated view of themselves, and they can kind of lose touch with reality. You know, they might forget that, hey, if you prick them, they're gonna bleed, right? If you were to take all their money away, they'd be broke, just like anyone else. So sometimes people like this, they do go through things that humble them. But I think the thing that we want to aim for is not having to go through something so horrendous that it humbles us. I think it's better to make the choice to be humble, right? As opposed to something having to happen to you in order for you to be humble. That's the last resort. That's the worst case scenario. That shouldn't be something that anyone is aiming for, right? So what does it say here also about Mr. Elon Musk? It says there's nothing wrong with Mr. Musk going to Thailand with an offer of help, which is true, right? There was nothing wrong with that. If he wanted to go bring his submarine to save the day, hey, more power to him, right? If I had a submarine, maybe I would do the same thing, or maybe I would come up with something different. But hey, whatever the case, he tried to do something good. But what was the reason? Right? So it says, so there's nothing wrong with that, with what Elon Musk did, but he need not take up arms against his detractors. He has plenty of things to keep him busy, such as allegations about serious injuries to workers in Tesla factories. Yeah, you may want to look into that. So here's what it has to say next. Wisdom does not automatically flow from business success. And that's true. I mean, to a certain extent, you have maybe financial wisdom. You have, the wisdom needed to be able to build a company, but maybe not the type of wisdom that leads to morality. So it says here, so wisdom does not automatically flow from business success. Rather, it is gained through experience. It is our hope that this episode has taught Mr. Musk that much. And yeah, hopefully he did learn from that. Although, he's probably just saying, whatever. They didn't want to use my submarine. See if I help them next time, right? But hopefully that's not his response. But it is really interesting to see how that happened. I mean, things like that do happen, where sometimes what we think is the solution, what we think is going to help, it may not. And hey, if someone doesn't want to use your idea, or they don't want to use something that you offer, don't take it personally, because at the end of the day, the main thing is that you're doing it with the right heart, with the right intentions. If you're just doing it to be noticed or so that people will praise you, that's not good. But if you're doing it to help, then that's the best thing. More on that after this. You're listening to North Coast Underground, where the underground starts with you.
Knowledge is power, power is money, and money makes the world go round. Money, power, respect, I get it, higher, learning, yeah, I'm winning. Only get better with time, you got on my mind with wisdom, there's no limit. There's no limit, get up and get it. Can achieve the impossible, conquer every obstacle. Exhausted from grinding, constantly push and do what they say I could. Life is what you make it. Knowledge is power, don't let them take it.
If you're in love